All right, and we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek here, where we talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we have a very special topic to share with you. It's all around 3D printing and creating physical game pieces. Joining us today is Todd Porter from BoardCraft, CEO of BoardCraft. Hey, Todd, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So BoardCraft is a tool that lets you, our platform that lets you build, create, and print and play your own 3D and 2D games. So we're gonna dig into that just a little bit. We're kind of pick Todd's brain on how that works, and then we're gonna look at using gravity in games. So we started last week with a conversation of how to reproduce some of the effects in the game. They need to be fed 3. And this week we're going to continue that conversation and look at some of the code for that. So joining us on the panel is Ed Marina from RomanGamer.com. Hey, Ed.
Hey there.
Also joining us, Jason Schroeder from JasonSchroeder.com. And Jason's behind the curtain there, so I'll say hey for him. Also joining us is Stephen Johnson from Ibaba Studios. And as always, thanks for joining us, Stephen. We appreciate it. All right, so let's talk about this 2D, 3D printed game piece concept, because I ran into Todd at ATX, RTX, which is in Austin, and he had his BoardCraft system laid out there with the Necrocraft game, and to me it was just really obvious that this was something that even digital game developers could get behind. So Todd, if you would, tell us what BoardCraft is and what people can do with it.
So BoardCraft is a set of tools that we've developed over the years, but have refined them for the purpose of building 3D printed games. And I really started this because I'd been doing a lot of tabletop game development and also video game development, because in my past I've been in the video game business for 30 years. And but I originally started out in tabletop games, Dungeons and Dragons in college, etc. So I really kind of wanted to get back there and see what we could produce. So I came up with the idea in January of 2014 to start embarking on looking at this and seeing just what was available. And as we move forward, I originally thought the game would be where the buildings of Necrovirus is a zombie apocalypse game, and what I really wanted is to have people feel really immersed in the zombie apocalypse world, having buildings and structures that they move through, because the nature of full physical models is pretty immersive when you see it and play it in person. And so that was the original concept, is that we're going to have the buildings all done in 3D, and everything else would be traditional game elements, chits. Chits are the little cardboard things you poke out when you buy a new game, or some of them come already poked out. But the idea being that, traditional board games like Monopoly, Life, etc., have just kind of touched the edge of what you could do with 3D printed elements. And we all are familiar with the houses and the hotels, or in Life, the little plastic structures that fit in the board. What I want to do is take that and put it on steroids, make the entire game board 3D printed. And so we started working on it. We started looking at the drivers. We had to do a lot of groundswell work, because getting a object to be fully 3D printed is a bit of a challenge. The models have to be what they call secure, which means that the inside of the models have to be in such a manner that you don't have any leaks. And so it is a bit of a challenge to get them there. What you're showing right now is these are full-color 3D printed models. This is actually a campus building in the actual Necrovirus world. You can see it's been damaged, etc. So we started on this project, but as we move forward, we went from originally having some of the elements be 3D printed to almost all of the elements being 3D printed. With the exception of the playing cards now, in Necrovirus, everything is 3D printed. All the components, all the little pieces. Here's a good example. You'll see here these myriad components that you're seeing around the game board. Those are all 3D printed. The vehicles, the characters, the markers, everything. Even the turn button ended up being 3D printed. And to the left there, you'll see our Secure Connect boards. The key magic to the system is that all of the pieces that you 3D print plug into a board which is ever expanding. And what that does is it means that the playing surface doesn't move around when you're playing in the game, but also you can keep expanding it ad infinitum and make the game larger and larger and larger. And so when we develop this, here you're seeing these are full color 3D printed models of the game in progress. Some of the zombies there in the foreground, as well as some of the buildings there. So we developed a system. Everything's standardized. It all plugs into the same Secure Connect boards. That's the bottom boards that secure everything. And that system enables the users to be able to play and be able to add their content. And you know, the thinking is that if you buy a BoardCraft certified game, you take it home, you can actually go to the website and then download new models, new things the community has added to the game, etc., new rules, new missions, and really makes the game live on the internet versus be something that you just have to have at your local game store. And we still think that's going to be a huge component of it. As we move forward in the Kickstarter, we've released new elements to the game. We've released now dungeon tiles, which are which enable you to use these tiles with Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons. We've released space tiles, which are actually, and there you're seeing a good example of dungeon tiles right there. Space tiles, which allow you to game if you're a Warhammer 4000 gamer, etc. Terrain tiles if you're a War Machine player, or you just want to have terrain tiles for your any actual genre of game, whether it's World War II, Civil War, medieval combat, etc. Again, all these tiles plug into the same base system, and that way you always can guarantee that you're not only playing in the right scale, but you also have everything that's compatible. That was one of the big charters of this, is that when we play in 28 millimeter, we want to stay in 28 millimeter. When we play in 15 millimeter, we want to stay in 15 millimeter. But you can take, for instance, the Necrovirus buildings and create your own game out of it. You could actually use those buildings for a modern combat game, for instance, because they're just destroyed, you know, modern day buildings. And the medieval buildings could be used for a medieval game, et cetera, et cetera. So that's was the real goal, and when you see the results, it's pretty amazing to watch people at the conferences, because a lot of people don't even know you can 3D print this much material. In the base Necrovirus game, for instance, there's 15 pounds of plastic material that's all 3D printed. So it's pretty immersive and pretty amazing how much you can do.
Hey Todd, don't let me interrupt you, but I'm just curious, is there a part of your vision for people to be able to print their own as home 3D print kits become better and better?
Yeah, you know, in fact, we're makers, and we really support our maker community. We have 10 3D printers in the company, and to support that 3D printed community, what we did was on the Kickstarter page, if you put $50 in to back us, you'll actually get all of the models for everything that we produce. So the dungeon tiles, the Necrovirus, and you can actually 3D print your own game. We made this move because we really do want to try to start that environment. What I'm surprised by is that more people haven't actually signed up for that, because I can tell you, as a guy that owns a 3D printer, unless you want to print a ring or a nice trinket, there wasn't a whole lot you could really print with these printers. You go to Thingiverse, and some of the stuff doesn't even print. So what I would rather have is I'd rather have thousands of people who are downloading the models to print them themselves. And I'm telling you, with these modern printers, I have two of the Lulzbot minis here in my office, and they're just workhorses. They're $1,300 printers. They auto level, so you're not having to get out a micrometer to level the bed. They're heated beds, so the models stick to the bed, and they even have a brush at the back to clean off the nozzle. They're just fantastic systems. I was really hoping that offer of the $50 level would get a lot of those in. But again, at the higher levels, at the $125 level, which is our starter, you're seeing it right here on the screen, is our starter Necrovirus level pack, you actually get access to all the 3D printed models. That was an attempt to try to get as many people to understand that this is a universe you can ever expand, even in your own room. And when we transition to talking about what we have for developers, our ability to give developers the base components they need to actually take their models and stick them on our bases and then make new stuff for the community is endless. And we wanted Boardcraft was really a vision of having people host their own stores up on the site, and like you do with TurboSquid, you sell your 3D models. We've certified they print on 3D printers. We've certified that they have the right base size for fitting on the bases, and just make a community that could build endless models. In fact, in the Boardcraft engine, you can actually take an existing model and just drag and drop new elements to it. So when you see the dungeon tiles here on the screen, we had dungeon tiles where you could add beds and lamps and chests and etc. You just could build a tile virtually. You didn't even have to be an artist. You could just drag and drop all the core elements onto the piece and make your own new piece that you print.